Hi, and welcome back to fleetmusic.blogspot.com. This is part two of my first tutorial, where we're looking at the synthesis of some kick drums using Ableton's operator synth. And the third and final kick drum we're going to synthesize, we're going to get on with that now. So we're going to drag that over into our session view. So now we have another instance of operator. We're going to copy that note over. So just to look, we've got our G0 down here. We're going to fire that off. We're actually going to, with this piece of sound design, we're going to look at layering two synths. One of the synths is going to be producing the kind of sub and body component of the sound. We're going to use a bit of subtractive synthesis, i.e. we're going to engage a low pass filter to shape the sound a bit more. And the second layer of the sound is going to be that kind of attack transient, and we're going to just use another synth layered on top of this one to produce the overall sound, where we have that kind of sub, body, and click all working together. So we're going to select our operator synth here, group it, and then we're going to open up the chain view. We're then going to Apple D to duplicate it. And all that's done now is just duplicated that same instance of operator, and we're just having we're triggering two synths playing those same two notes. We're just going to mute that to work on the first part. We're going to rename that by hitting Apple R. I'm going to call this one body. We're going to go over to this section and choose the last algorithm. So whereby you've only got, well, essentially what this algorithm is doing, as you can tell, is just there's four oscillators working in isolation. There's no FM synthesis happening whatsoever. So oscillator A, this is going to be the kind of subby component of our kick. So we're going to pull down sustain, as we've been doing in all the previous other examples, and bring in the decay to a certain extent. We're then going to use oscillator B to provide the additional body, and we're going to move the next octave up, so that's now playing a note at G1. So now we have G1 and G0 playing together. What we will do when you increase the level, so it's actually audible. But so if we right click in the shelf oscillator B, we're going to go to this helpful little context menu, and we're going to select copy envelope from oscillator A. So that means that we're going to get the same kind of accenting of the sound. We're not going to have any kind of horrible moments where the attack and decay phase is different, which kind of can sometimes produce clanging results in these short percussive sounds. So we're going to bring up the level of oscillator B. We hear that additional content. We hear a slightly fuller sound now. We're now going to engage our filter for the first time in this tutorial, and we're just going to modulate the frequency cutoff to see what sounds right. That sounds quite solid to me. I think with this kind of sound, resonance, i.e. the kind of amplifying of the frequency at the cutoff frequency, or let me explain that again. Resonance is basically where there's a kind of increase the amplitude of the sound at the point of the frequency cutoff, and I don't think that's really doing us any favors with this particular sound, so we're going to leave it down at 0, I think. We're now going to throw in a couple of effects. The first one is going to be saturator. We're going to dial in initial value for drive. Pull that back a bit. Bring down the overall volume, which will then allow us to drive it a bit more without distortion getting into the sound. we're going to select medium curve. You can quite clearly hear the effect that's having on the overall sound. And the second effect we're going to bring into our chain here is going to be a compressor, just to bring up the average level. We're going to set the ratio to 3, and we're going to start with the attack at 0 and roll it back till we hear the re-emergence of that transient. Such as around about this point. I think we'll leave the release there because it sounds quite tight and okay. And at this point we're going to move on to our second layer. So, which we're going to hit Apple R and rename click. So we're going to move the core settings of this so that we're getting a much higher G. Let's start with this one. We're going to bring down the sustain right down, and we're going to bring the decay. So we just get a little snap. This might be a good opportunity to let's bring down that overall level a bit of the body, because I can see from our meters we're getting a bit of clipping. This might be a good opportunity, as I was saying, with our click sound to bring in a bit of FM. So let's dial in that ratio. Let's try these settings. So, I think what we might want to do, we might want to get that click a little snappier. So let's hear that in isolation. There's nothing more than 2 sine waves and a bit of FM, but it's giving us that little click which is helping that kick sit, and it will, well, should I say, it will help our kick sit in the mix when it's used. I might just play around these settings just to get a combination which sounds good. Or better, should I say. Sounds a bit too FM, that one. Let's bring back the body. Here we go. So I think that sounds done now. And that concludes my first tutorial, my first blog posting. Thank you very much, and be sure to check out fleetmusic.blogspot.com, and also check out my SoundCloud site, where you can find me at soundcloud.com/Louis-Fleet. Okay, cheers, and thanks for listening.